St. Grimm Productions.
Hello and welcome to my Lazy ED1 guide. I decided to make this guide because I hadn't done ED1 since ED2 came out, and I tried to find a guide for a refresher, but they all brought along 100 switches, and I just wasn't going to do that. I'm too lazy. So this guide will only bring 2 weapon switches for Seiryu, and kill him in 3 rotations. The pros can kill all 3 crystals in a single rotation, but I'm not getting sweaty to play a game, so this is my way of doing it. So to get started, you'll want to have 92 plus combat stats for tier 90 weapons and trimmed masterwork. 106 herblore will get you elder overloads, and at 118 you can make the blessed flask, which is very handy if you overeat like I do and need lots of food. But if you don't have either of those, 98 for Holy Overloads will work well enough. 99 Prayer is required for the Malevolence Curse, but Turmoil will work if you don't have 99 or you don't have Malevolence. At 98 or higher Archaeology, you can get relics that will allow you to have permanent Luck of the Dwarves effects, gain more adrenaline from your attacks, and not lose adrenaline when outside of combat. And 96 Summoning is needed for the Pakyak Familiar. But if you're under 96, the best Beast of Burden you can use should work okay. As for gear, you could just wear full trimmed masterwork, but Cinderbanes and Laceration boots help a lot, and you'll notice that the scythe is used for trash mobs and Seiryu, but if at all possible, a Pterosaur Maul is the current best in slot weapon against most of the bosses. Some helpful items would include a planted feet switch. I prefer the Sun Spear, the Ring of Vigor, which saves 10% of your adrenaline after an ultimate ability, and the Pterosaur Maul, which acts as a tier 97 weapon against the Guardian, Masuta, and Seiryu's crystals. The Dominion mines can help a ton on Seiryu. You can drop 2 mines at a time, totaling 20,000 damage to a crystal. You can bring 6 to damage all 3 crystals, but I bring 2 for the first crystal, and 2 if I make a mistake, such as allowing one of the crystals to be healed, or jumping on the shackles late. For perks, naturally use the best in slot. While I'm not certain, I believe these are the current best in slot perks. Precise 6 plus Ruthless 1 and Aftershock 4 plus Equilibrium 2 on the Scythe and Maul. Biting 4 and Relentless 5 and Crackling 4 on the Trimmed Masterwork body. Invigorating 4 and Mobile plus Devoted 4 and Impatient 4 on the Masterwork legs. And a Planted Feet switch. For the inventory, all of the bosses are easily possible with just sharks and even a steel titan instead of a yak, but I tend to overeat and make a lot of mistakes, so I find the safer option is bruise and sailfish for all 3 bosses, and sharks for trash mobs. For ability bars, I use the same bar consistently, but I switch out the threshold and ultimate abilities to fit my needs. For trash mobs, we need as much AoE damage as possible. For the Guardian and Masuta, you just want to wreck them as fast as possible. And on Seiryu, you'll want to only use thresholds and ultimates manually. Sometimes I put the thresholds in different orders, so just keep an eye on my ability bar when I start a new section to see how my abilities are being used. Lastly, before starting, you can buy the ability to bank from the chests and give double boss loot with auto collect on for 750k Dungeoneering tokens. If you have the relic powers I mentioned earlier, use War's Retreat Adrenaline Crystals to get 100% adrenaline to start. In the first room, pot up, turn on your Magic Prayer, Malevolence, and your Vampirism Scrim and Bladed Dive to the barrier on the north side of the room. You only need to kill the mobs that drop the barrier, which is the 4 right in front of it. Killing these 4 will drop the barrier and allow you to continue. Head to the far east and you'll see a large group of mobs. You'll need to kill all of these to open the next barrier to the northeast. When the barrier is down, kill the 3 mobs outside of the door to drop the last barrier in the first room. The next room is rather straightforward. Kill the 5 mobs in the first area to drop the barrier. In the next area, kill the 3 mobs on either side to drop the next barrier. None of the dragons need to be killed, so it's best to just run past them. For the last barrier, I prefer the west side as it avoids fighting anything but the boss. Teleport out to get rid of the dragons attacking you and gear up for the fight with the first boss, the Sanctum Guardian. I am by no means a pro PVMer, and I know there's about 100 things I could do to improve my kill speed and DPS in this fight, but I'm lazy, so this is the way I do it. For this fight, pray ranged and start just to the east of the central line. You can prayer switch when it uses its splash attack, but I just tank the melee hit. After the water spout starts, run to the west side of the central line to avoid huge damage. As soon as the spout ends, run back to the east side and prepare for the next mechanic. When the blue bar appears over your head, you need to run somewhere you won't need to stand. If you're not sure how many rotations the kill will take you, I suggest using the southeast corner until you're more used to the fight. After the flame is placed, bladed dive back to the front of the boss and continue attacking. The boss will continue to rotate from the water spout to the flames. Just repeat the previous steps and hope that you don't run out of room to place the flames. If you happen to do so, I believe you can surge through the water spout to avoid damage. After the boss is dead, bank at the chest or return to War's Retreat and switch back to the trash mob setup, and head into the door behind where the boss was. In the next room, be careful of the Honto Sellsword. They have a special that's pretty much guaranteed to wipe you out if you're not using melee prayer. Run south to the bridge and focus on the two mobs tied to the barrier. Behind this barrier, you'll encounter the ranged version of the Sellswords. The same goes for these. No matter how many mobs are on you, if just one is a Death Lotus rogue, pray ranged. After the Death Lotus rangers are dead, focus on the three mobs at the barrier. In the next area, run north and east. There is a single mob at the barrier required to drop it. Now run east and cross the bridge. Kill the three mobs guarding the barrier. Then run up the stairs. Only the mobs that were stationary outside of the door are required to drop the last barrier in this room. In this room, kill all four mages, even though only two are required to drop the barrier. Pray melee as you'll be facing three Sellswords and other melee enemies. Run to the north corner to hopefully halberd the Sellswords. After killing the group and dropping the barrier, just around the northwest corner is a rogue, so pray ranged and dispose of it before going further. Run to the northwest stairs going down and kill the mages guarding the barrier. When it drops, once again teleport out to get rid of excess mobs. Now gear up to fight the second boss, Masuta the Ascended. If you don't have laceration boots, for this fight I suggest bringing dual wield instead of the scythe. Pray melee, and after 2 to 4 auto attacks, he will begin to spin and deal large amounts of damage. Surge, bladed dive away, or use devotion. Devotion is the best option as it will allow you to continue damaging him. Three to 5 auto attacks after the spin, purple waves will appear in the arena. If you're downstairs, run up, and if you're upstairs, run down. Magic prayer may lower the damage of the purple waves. For the rest of this phase, Masuta repeats this rotation. Around 275,000 health, Masuta will begin to float and stop attacking the player, and also can't be damaged. During this time, he summons Thrashing Waters. The Maul only acts as a tier 80 weapon against these, so switch to Scythe or Dual Wield and Bladed Dive them while using Magic Prayer.
Her penultimate sighs caught softly on the kindling wind, her saintly eyes filling with tears, lifting with truth, and then a golden flash like the onset of heaven, leaving her screams, breaking my heart, and in the grip of fire I knew the death of love.
After all of the waters are gone, switch to Ranged Prayer and back to the Maul to finish Masuta off. There's nothing special about this phase, just stand still and DPS. Instead of banking, head down the stairs that appeared after killing Masuta. Run to the middle platform with the chest and kill the 3 crystals closest to the chest to drop the barrier to Seiryu. Teleport out or use the chest to bank and gear up for the final boss. Seiryu has a lot more mechanics than the previous 2 bosses, and thus will require more items. You can bring a shield or defender switch to res the fire breath, but I prefer to just tank it. However, if you do res them, it's possible to do Seiryu without any food. When you're ready to start, pot up and pray magic. Mechanics seem to trigger randomly, but the first one seen here is the tail attack. Seiryu will slam his tail into a black hole, causing tendrils to pop up under you. Walk 2 spaces in any direction to avoid it. The next mechanic scene is the fire breath. As I said, this can be rezzed, but it's easier to just eat through the damage. Yet another mechanic is seen here. The screen will get bright and an arrow will appear on the ground. You can stand on this arrow to avoid damage, but if you get to the arrow after the black energy that flies from Seiryu, you will most likely get killed. So it's usually easier to just take 1 step out of the way when the black hole appears at the arrow, or just run around like a maniac. The deadliest mechanic is an arrow of shadow hands that appear from the south side of the arena and work their way north. This attack can easily sneak up on you and cause instant death. Make sure to avoid the hands at all costs. Burning was the sunset like a portal of doom. On the safety Iron Maiden as she fell from her womb. Visions and ambition never listened to submission, and she was on a mission from the highest above. To 3-cycle Seiryu, you'll need 100% adrenaline when he falls under 7.2 million health, so thresholds and ultimates should only be used manually. I typically try not to use ultimates when he is lower than 7.3 million health, and not use thresholds after 7.21 million. When Seiryu falls under 7.2 million health, his head will drop to the ground. Run, surge, or bladed dive to either ledge and climb up on his restraints. Barge or simply attack the first crystal and immediately drop 2 Dominion Mines next to it. Then switch to Ring of Vigor and Planted Feet, use Berserk and summon a Dread Nymph. Then switch to Maul and Ring of Death. Sip an Adrenaline Pot and use all 3 threshold abilities. The Maul cuts through the crystals like butter, and you should have no issue killing the first crystal before the blobs reach Seiryu. After the first crystal is dead, start attacking the middle crystal. When the blobs reach Seiryu, the crystal will be uber healed. On the 4th uber heal, drop another Dread Nymph and DPS the middle crystal. When the front row of the second wave of blobs reaches the edge of the circle design in the floor, use Anticipate to negate the stun from falling and switch back to Scythe. Immediately after falling, AoE the blobs to avoid them healing the middle crystal.
Of darkness, will we shine amidst the brightest stars?
Repeat the first part of the fight until Seiryu falls under 7.2 million health again and drops back to the floor. Climb up the same side of his restraints to finish off the middle crystal. There's no need to use mines on the middle crystal unless mistakes are made. Just planted feet switch, berserk, and kill. Do the same for the last crystal as you did the middle crystal during the first cycle. 4th heal Dreadnought, DPS, Anticipate, Scythe switch, kill blobs after falling. Get Seiryu under 7.2 million health a third time and finish off the final crystal. If no mistakes were made, the last 2 mines can be saved or used on the final crystal to speed up the kill. And that's about all there is to it. Loot your chest and do another run. Thanks for checking out my ED1 guide, and I hope it helps someone out there get a kill.
Saint Grim Productions.